Good afternoon. Testing. Mic. Mic testing. Mic testing. The session is beginning in the next 5 minutes. Thank you very much for your patience.
I have my microphone. Thank you. Welcome. Good to have you here. My name is Doina. I'm one of the youth advisors to the World Committee, and I'm going to co-facilitate this session together with Srinath, which is responsible in WSEC for External Affairs, Unit Manager, something a very important title for External Affairs and Communications. And we also have our rapporteur, who I asked to present himself.
Cedric, rapporteur.
Thank you, Cedric. And two very important people, which are our online community leaders, who are going to make the connection with the people who are watching us live and may want to put some questions towards this session and the discussions here. Please present.
Yes, I'm Eric from Hong Kong.
I'm Josephine. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Eric and Josephine. And now, before that, some so-called housekeeping issues. You probably know very well, but this session is going to be live streamed. So please, we ask you kindly not to get online to watch this session online, but be here with us, physical present. We also have these gray dots. This means it's the area in which we are seen by our online participants. And we have, this is very important for you to know, the so-called green cross. This is where if you want to address questions, you have to come in order to be seen by the others watching us online at the moment. And if I may, there are some evaluation forms, which please return to us by the end of the session. This is a kind reminder to you, and if you can, pass them on. Thank you. Every single time you want to be heard, please ask for the microphone, because if not, it's only us who are going to hear each other, and that's it. Next, if I may, I will go through the whole session, how it's going to proceed. First, it's going to be Srinath who's going to make an introduction about our session here. Then we're going to have 3 panelists. We are very lucky to have Hani from the World Scout Bureau talking on UN and education. We're going to have a guest from WAGS, Andy. And there is going to be a representative from UN. It's Dr. Ruben Sessa, if I said it correctly. Welcome here. You will have a possibility to address them questions after we're going to make presentations. So we decided from the most interesting questions we're going to pick up, we're going to split in groups, and we're going to discuss upon them as well and draw some conclusions at the end. And maybe a very encouraging conclusion from Srinath at the end. So this is basically 90 minutes. Let's start, I guess.
Thank you very much, Doina. Doina is, I'm very happy to have Doina with me in this session, not only because she's a wonderful person, but because she's one of the key decision makers. She's in the World Scout Committee as a youth advisor to the World Scout Committee. And she's been a very active supporter of Scouting's work with the partners, particularly the United Nations and the system. So I think this subject is very important for both Diana and me, and we are the ones who are trying to build big ownership within the movement on this subject. Without any further ado, I want to just dive into the topic today and bring a little bit of perspective on what we're going to do in the panel as a discussion. Education was one of the Millennium Development Goals, access to free primary education. But it was not certainly the number one, because it was well numbered, the Millennium Development Goals. And then we started having the post-2015 discussions. There are consultations happening from the UN to identify the next goals for the United Nations and all the civil society, academia, to have joined up action to help development activities in the world. Why that was done in such advance? 2015 is next year. Why is such a big fuss raised in advance? Partly because of evaluation of what didn't go well with the Millennium Development Goals. That's my judgment. And I think buy-in was so late that the United Nations felt the momentum, the crescendo didn't start. Almost 5 years, in the first 5 years, it was pretty slow to get everybody moving. Even though the UN system itself started moving very quickly because they identified budgets and everything. But to get a buy-in from all the other stakeholders, particularly the countries, because it takes time to warm up national systems, national budgets, reorganize structures and everything. And hence, that time was lost in the 15-year battle. And soon you see that you're already past the half-time period and goals are yet to be achieved. And I think they wanted to reverse that system a little bit, to start pretty early and together. But there is also a sincere approach that I feel from the United Nations to engage everyone on the process, saying that, how much resources can you put as one organization, one multilateral organization, even though you are big and powerful, to achieve these development goals? Everybody needs to do something for it. And it syncs very well with a movement like Scouting. So today, we stand at a time when Scouting has really contributed to what we have done to support the Millennium Development Goals. I will not go further into details because one of our panelists is going to mention about particularly the Scouts of the World program that we've put in place to fit into the MDG framework. And we are working and thinking of what we should do for the post-2015 agenda. Coming back to education in particular, these consultations that the UN started in advance have shown that the number one priority that everybody in the consultations are saying has been education. And while the projector warms up, and I show you a statistic that really is surprising probably to see, in the sense that the whole world is together in all kind of statistics showing that education is their number one need for development. It has overtaken extreme poverty. And that, for me, has been extremely interesting. As you can see here, a good education rates higher than so many others, and remarkably, by a huge number of votes. My World was a survey done by the United Nations as part of their consultations. They did country consultations where 50 chosen countries were worked with. And this is a consultation that was done with everybody. It's an open crowdsourcing platform where so far they've collected 1.2 million votes, and it's going to continue collecting people's opinion. It takes 30 seconds. And Scouting partnered with My World to help bring a lot of inputs into the research. I mean, their data is available for public on data.myworld.org, myworld2015.org. And this is particularly the partnership that Scouting did to help take My World to everybody in the Scouting world. And you see, the voting was so simple. You just click on 6 of your priorities from 16 and say, these are my priorities. You can add one of your own if it's not there in the 16. And then if you want to engage further, there is possibility once you do that. 30 seconds to vote, but then if you want to learn more what has been done in this, why people have chosen this 16, there's a lot of information very neatly organized on that website. So Scouting did already start working on contributing to getting people's voices. And I want to recognize Philippines in particular, who at one stage, very close to when the numbers were getting to 1 million, were one of the top 10. Just the Boy Scouts of Philippines, one organization, one of the National Scout organizations managed to get a lot of voices heard. So in this scenario where we have everybody saying a good education is important, Scouting, and we will hear a very special guest today, the Girl Guides, our best partner, if I could say that, working in external relations. When I look at partnership, the first thing that comes to my mind is WAGs. And I think it's very important to see that. I mean, it's coming from an old saying, charity begins at home. And we'll hear from them how much Scouting, Guiding, and other organizations engaged in non-formal education are doing to contribute. But where does that fit into the UN goals? Maybe we should ask the UN. Do they think non-formal education is going to be as recognized to be contributing to this? If not, maybe a lot of good work is just not being measured. So to discuss this, I'd like to invite our panelists now. And you're welcome to ask questions at the end of the speakers. And of course, we'll have questions probably coming in from online, and we'll take it as we do. So can I please welcome Ruben, please? Ruben is from the UN, but he's been working with Scouts for a long time now.
Well, I was a scout since the age of 6. It's like I've done 32 years of scouting.
We're just not going to brand you Scout yet, because you will be UN. The victim. So please have your seat. And can I call upon our WAGS representative here? I'll allow her to introduce herself a little bit, but then I have a few things to add.
Hi, I'm Andy, and I'm the education manager at WAGS. So my main focus is on supporting the development of our global educational programs and also building capacity in our member organizations in terms of the non-formal education that they deliver.
So Andy doesn't like to be called Andrea. That's the full name. So just remember that she's Andy. And Andy is also a person that I know for some time. We were together at the Rover Way in Iceland. And very fond memories of that great event that Scouts and Guides organized together. And finally, not last but not the least, our home player, Hani Abdul Monem. Please. Yeah. I was looking more at cricket, you know. So, but he's you're a football fan. So Hani, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Hani Abdulmonem. I am the Youth Program Director in the Central Office of World Scout Bureau. And I'm originally a dentist, so don't smile a lot, so your teeth will be appearing to me. But I'm working now on the educational part.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try and position myself here with the risk of probably being seen much more than you. Is that? Yeah, I think I'm in safe area. So, huh? Okay. So if any of you watch on the webcast and see that it's not looking good, help us, okay? Okay. Starting straightforward, I don't see that WASM and WAGS and our efforts and likewise of the other organizations is really going to fit into, at least quantitatively, contributing to the new goals if non-formal education is not recognized as a part of the whole equation. So on that note, can I first invite Hani Abdulmonem to talk a little bit about what Scouting does in the area of non-formal education, please.
I think whenever we say Scouting, we will always think about what the Scouts is doing outside the home and outside school. And you will feel Scouts, they are everywhere. They are in the mountain, they are in the camp, they are in the street. They may return back to do something in the school, but not in the classroom. And this is actually giving us a very social spirit for the Scouting and for the Scout education, how the young people is try to work together and to work with their leaders very informally, very, there's no limitation. The young person can talk to his leader about so many things, and they can do a lot of things out of the box, out of the curriculum, because there is basics we are working on to develop our young people in physical, intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and social. But there is no limits. We can do a lot of things. So it is really very innovative, very creative way of doing things out of the box. So I think I'm summarizing a little bit what I would like to say, but I have another personal experience. May I can share it later.
Thanks, Hani. I think what we have done in the past is that Scouting has been always happy to do what we have done so well continuously, but we've probably not taken a moment to articulate what we do to the sense of what the current world understands. You know, what is the current world of academia talking about education, and where do we fit into that? And we have not seen the need, but maybe that's something that we could think as we go forward. But very, very good start. Thank you, Hani. You want to say something?
This is my personal things. I am a dentist, as I just said, but I'm also very going deep in the non-formal education, and I read a lot, and I have some diplomas in this area. But the problem is, when you ask the academia to have non-formal education degree, you don't find. You just find classroom education, school-based education. You just find, yeah, there is some basic things about psychology, about education theories, and so on, but they are always focusing about teachers, about classroom, about extracurricular activities, and so on, but they are not giving more about something outside the school. So I think this is very important to highlight.
As I'm preparing the presentation of WAGS to come up online, I'd like to invite Andy to please share the WAGS perspective. Thank you.
I think that for guiding, and I think this is also true for Scouting, in many ways, what we do is non-formal education, but it actually goes beyond non-formal education. Non-formal education, whether you see it as a type of education or as a point on a spectrum between formal education and informal education, is something that's practiced in the wider world. We are not the only organizations and we're not the only movements using non-formal methods. But through the Scout method, we go further and we bring in this close connection with the community. We take it out of a training center. We take it into the streets, into the forests, and we bring in this element of community action. And for WAGs, community action and advocacy, so speaking out on topics that matter to girls, have become very central elements of our non-formal education. Now, Shrina asked me to kind of mention, oh, interesting. Is it? Because Shrina asked me to kind of mention how WAGs is approaching education in the context of the post-2015 UN agenda. So I've just put something very briefly together to point out the direction we are taking. Now, because obviously this is kind of a new area and everything is not settled yet in terms of the post-2015 agenda, there are some gaps. But overall, our approach to education, any global education program we work on has this structure. So it will always have an element of an education and awareness program, like a badge curriculum or running educational events. And that will generally be very focused on a youth audience. Advocacy is very important for WAGs. And as well as advocating at UN events and taking youth groups to UN events, we also want to integrate advocacy more as a way for girls and young women to express their voice at every level within the movement. And then community action has always been important to scouting and guiding. And again, we are trying to move to a place where community action is far more focused on the girls coming up with their own ideas to address issues they care about, and the leaders facilitating them to develop projects that address these issues. And this is very much an area in which we've been working in partnership with the UN and other organizations. Cool. So in terms of education as a theme, we have decided at WAGs to put a strong focus on education in the coming years. And as I said, this is a work in progress. But so looking under those three areas, in the area of advocacy, we will be focusing on access to high quality education for all. So it's not just that everyone needs education, but that it has to be of a high quality. And as I said, I'm the education person, not the advocacy person. So if you want to know more about this, you would need to contact WAGs in London. In terms of educational programs, in our Thinking Day theme for 2014 is going to be education. So we will be launching a curriculum around the theme of education. And I believe there will also be other initiatives that are under development, but that's yet to be determined. But we're also placing an increased focus on how WAGs is approaching our non-formal education internally. So we feel that we have a responsibility to check if we are going to advocate about high-quality education, that we are also offering a really high-quality educational experience at all levels within WAGs. So looking more internally at the quality of non-formal education offered in our member organizations and how we can better support this area of work. Particularly developing a handbook on non-formal education. This is something hopefully we're going to launch early next year, which will look at WAGs' definition of non-formal education and are the approaches that we're going to take to support leaders, even at local level, to apply the method in a more kind of effective way. So very much the themes we're talking about in this Congress. And then in the area of community action, our OLAV award for 2014 is focusing on projects that are innovating in education. So the projects will have an educational outcome, and we're looking specifically for groups that are showing real innovation in how they approach this. Removing barriers to education as a theme for projects, and also the Be the Change toolkit, which is going to be was finished, but it's not published yet, and it's a toolkit for teenagers, so for girls and young women aged 14 plus, to walk them through the process of developing their own community action projects. and implementing those. Nearly there. And yeah, so for World Thinking Day, we developed these 4 themes, which is the 4 kind of angles we're going to take when we look at the area of education over the next few years. And 2 are more kind of internally focused, so looking at for the Girl Guides and Girl Scouts to really work on how they can take responsibility for their own lifelong learning. So again, seeing themselves as agents within their own learning journey and how we can facilitate that. And doing more work to really articulate what is the learning experience that Girl Guiding and Girl Scouting actually offers, what's special about this. Just as I'm hearing conversations here, what is the special learning that a Scout experiences? It's the same kind of focus. And then looking at if these are topics to help the girl develop herself, we then want to encourage her to take action in the world around her. And again, this is through the kind of advocacy and community action themes of high quality, speaking out for high quality education and developing projects that remove barriers of access to education. And I think, is that it? All right, yeah, last thing. And this is probably my main focus, which is looking at this element of internal capacity building. So there's quite a few ways that WAGS is going to work on developing our internal capacity around education over the next years, particularly looking at non-formality in different settings, like non-formality in school-based settings, in areas where there are not necessarily great structures to support formal education, and how Girl Guides and Girl Scouts can support that. Applying the method in a modern way. We'll be developing a new policy and guidelines for our educational programs that will be launched in about 6 months' time. And providing targeted kind of integrated support to member organisations, so we can really understand what are the specific needs of our member organisations in different parts of the world and kind of understand if we can provide something targeted to their needs. And also building an online education gateway where we will be connecting together the kind of education specialists in our different member organisations with each other and with WAGS, so that we can, again, provide more kind of targeted support and get a better understanding of how we can build our capacity. And I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Follow this order if that's okay. I have disturbed the flow a little bit. It's just because we need to do this role play also for the sake of our online audience. Musical chairs. As of now, we're playing it well. If one loses the chair, then so far so good. All of us still have our jobs. But we're going to make one person's job difficult, and we hope it doesn't cost you a job in the United Nations. So we're going to ask you a very tough question now. Today is the theme, the sub-theme of the daily theme of our Congress is education. And in the core of that, we are discussing the number one priority that everybody is saying we should focus on from 2015, that's education. And we're talking about organizations which are able to invest so much in the area of education, like this Congress, like all the work that Andy just presented from WAG. So a lot of stake from organizations such as Scouting, Guiding, YMCA, Red Cross, the International Award Association, whose Secretary General presented input earlier this morning, John May. All of these organizations are contributing. Why so far the United Nations hasn't been able to capture that as a contribution to education?
Okay, so I have to say that I'm not directly responsible for the SDGs, but it is actually in my division. So we have I have colleagues who actually work on the SDGs from, let's say, the FAO perspective. So I do know something of what's happening because I am having to contribute to some of the documentation. You might be surprised to know it's actually probably as frustrating for us as it is for you, because there's actually so many players. So, for example, for what we call the Rome-based agencies, which look at food security and stuff like that. We're not even able to put some of our food security issues into the SDGs at the moment. Also, it's not only UN agencies that are playing this role in developing the SDGs, but close out. Okay, so it's not only the UN agencies, but also like the countries themselves. So,
Hello? Hello? That's fine then. If
yeah, it's good.
let's do it.
So it's not only a UN process. Actually, it's a country-driven process in New York. So actually, a certain point, like at the beginning of the year, countries actually told the UN, like, we're going to deal with this. We don't want like your inputs. So at the moment, what's happening is like we have probably 3 or 4 parallel SDG developments happening at the same time. So, for example, we now have a UN coordinating mechanism where we're trying to actually get some of the issues in. For example, in the Millennium Development Goals, energy has been seen as one of like the missing MDGs because there's nothing on energy. So like there's been some work trying to get the energy at least recognized in the SDGs, like energy for all, as requested by the UNSG. Now, for education, and then there's another problem with the new SDGs, is they're trying to do an integrated approach. So, like before, like the MDGs was very like education, like food security, but now they're trying to create SDGs which are much more complex in a way, but they're going to be like more
Interrupting you there so that not everybody knows SDGs probably, so you do
Sustainable Development Goals.
Sustainable
It's
Development
going
Goals.
to be the future Millennium Development Goals.
And how does that relate to post-2015, one line, so that people know?
Well, in theory, like when the MDGs finish, the NDGs will blossom and they'll be the new.
So that's probably going to be the new set of goals. It's going to be called Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
that's what all this work that's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, for education, I can find out for you. I mean, have you been talking to UNESCO or anything like that?
Yes, the Education for All division of UNESCO and their work for this 2015, they have their own 6 areas of focus, and at least the UNESCO has a recognition of non-formal education in the sense that they engage with a lot of civil society organizations who are in one way or the other dealing with non-formal education. But I'm not sure that they count our numbers.
Okay. Because, I mean, it's not only you guys that are doing non-formal education. Like, practically all the work that FAO does is non-formal education. Like, we don't work in a formal context. All our capacity building and training and education is all in non-formal. So, like, you know...
For the farmer communities and...
Exactly. Like, all our, like, farmer field schools, junior farmer field schools, like, all the training capacity is, like, all non-formal. So... for sure, there's like a large critical mass which is interested in that non-formal component. How it's integrated into the SDGs, you know, if it's like on its own or it's integrated across all the SDGs, that's like another question. And it really depends on how these SDGs get developed.
There is also all the other agents which are doing non-formal education, such as adult literacy programs, women education, education of the girl child, that are done by even the government and civil society in various countries. These are also equally affected in the sense that they are reaching the marginalized to the marginalized and helping those numbers really transform society. But how will they, what should we do as WASM, WAGS, the other organizations, yourself as United Nations, to help recognize all these forms of non-formal education? I know that there's a piece of study in the European, done by the European Union to bring validation and recognition to non-formal learning and learning in general, but non-formal learning in particular. So is there something that we need to do? What do you think is missing? Is it Is there some standards that we can set?
You could show the impacts. I don't know if you've got some stats within WASM which actually shows how much you've actually achieved within each country. That's like always very strong things to send like to country representatives and stuff like that. And then for example, I can help you a bit. Like I can channel some of that WASM stuff through our UN sort of discussions. And to be honest, because I'm not actually directly involved in the SDGs, I don't know what the current situation is on this particular topic. I don't have to, but I can find out. That's easy to do.
No problems. I want to give the panelists an opportunity to either cross-question, or make a comment on top of all the inputs that have come in so far. Would Hani or Andy like to say something before we hand over to...
I have a choice. I know that both WASM and WAGS have been very involved with FAO on the various badge curriculums around the environment themes. And I was just interested to hear from your perspective how you feel this is going as a project and how successful these badge packs have been from FAO's perspective.
No, they've really been great because with a very small budget, we've actually had huge impacts. For example, the Water Challenge badge, in a couple of weeks of it being launched, I think it was used by 30,000 or something like that. So it's actually our biggest problem is that we can't meet the costs of the publishing. I think we've had a request for at least over 80,000 probably copies now on the challenge badges. And I think on the WAG site, I think we've sold at least 7,000 badges, and lots of the national organisations have printed their own. So it's a really good strategy on, you develop the tools and the materials in partnership, make sure it's it hits the requirements of the end stakeholder group, and then it just fly. Because we haven't actually, because we're trying to finish all the badges before we even doing the advertising or anything like that, but it's just, they're just flying so it's nice, very nice.
Thank you. Hani?
I just need to emphasize on the young people element that we are working with. I mean, when you were working with the UN, sometimes you're working with elderly, as you say, about the women or literacy or so on. But our focus point is the young people non-formal education, and it is continuous from childhood until youth age. And this is really complementary thing. It is very progressive from someone who has 6 years old until he become 20 years old or 24 years old, and he become leader and he stay in the movement. So I think I'm feeling that this comparison between our non-formal education context to other contexts is not really fair, because this is my personal opinion that what we are doing in WAGS and WUSM especially since more than 100 years is not done by so many international organizations. Maybe we have the Big Six alliance, but they are also doing it differently, not like what we are doing, as we have this educational process and method and so on. So if the UN is looking to these two big organizations, how do you look to them? Are they a manpower place where you can implement projects, or you are really looking to them as experts in this field of young people and non-formal education?
Experts, because really within the UN system, they don't know how to work with young people. Okay, maybe in FAO we have this junior farmer field schools, but it is actually a different format. It's not the same. So it's actually it's an interesting experience because we have to sort of raise the capacity of also our staff in the UN system to think in that non-formal educational format. So we really see it as not feed it down to them type thing. We really see it as a joint partnership, because for example, when we create the products, there's no way that you can actually create products that work for your user group if we didn't actually develop those products together. And actually, I think that's one of the big problems with the UN system. So quite often they produce a lot of materials without a clear idea who the stakeholder is and like the stakeholder needs. So they produce materials and it gets left on the shelf. So I think that's the nice thing of this partnership, is that we actually developing the resources together. You know, like we provide you like some of the expertise, you know, from our technical departments, but you really help in transforming that material into something that's usable for your groups. And because you've helped us do that, then we find like, oh, we have so many schools using the materials now as well, and lots of other like groups that you would actually weren't actually developed for that specific group, but it actually fits in with them as well. And we're getting a lot of feedback from, for example, schools. A lot of schools is using it in their actual curriculum in the classroom. So it's quite interesting.
I just have a comment, not a question to Ruben, but a general comment about the UN. Because when we talk about education in the UN, you're always thinking about UNESCO. And UNESCO is always very focusing on the formal education. They have some non-formal education researches somehow, but it is at the level of academic things, not implementing things. So yeah, this is just a comment, maybe needs to be highlighted somewhere else.
I don't know if you know, like with UNESCO, we have like the International Decade of Sustainable Development, and there we've actually been pushing UNESCO a lot about the non-formal part. So we, like the other agencies, are sort of trying to push them, and also like a couple of years ago, we started a work with UNESCO about like putting climate change into the national curriculum, which is like a formal education process, but also working on the non-formal. So it's like an integrated country approach. Because like, you know, you actually need both approaches to sometimes to get like the full sort of capacity building that you want to achieve with young people. So, you know, UN's very slow, but but we sort of, and maybe that's also like could be also your strategy for the SDGs. I think you have to be very like, you probably have to put a lot of man hours into actually analysing nearly like every week what the current situation is. You know, what different countries are proposing or pushing, like which UN agencies are pushing what, and then like strategically even like dialoguing with them to insert the bits that you would like to see. It's a bit like the UNFCCC negotiations. There's a lot of in the corridor deals that you have to play as well.
I think it's talking about that, Ruben. I want to mention a special thanks to you for encouraging and making the space for scouting and guiding, particularly to have a presence in climate change conversations, for creating that space for us, for opening doors several years ago. And we now see that particularly WAGS has a very well organized system to take delegations. We've had ups and downs, but we've always been present at each of the COPs. Thank you very much for that. And I think looking forward, definitely there is opportunity for us to be part of the conversations. But I think looking back, we have lost some opportunities of recognizing each other's work. And that's why today's discussion for me is important. And I'd like to, at this time, hand it over back to my co-facilitator to take the discussion with the audience as well.
Thank you, Srinath. I would like to ask now our audience if you have any questions for our panelists, please. And if you want to see or if you want to be seen by our audience over the camera, please come here and stand on the green cross.
We would like it that you are seen when you speak,
please.
Because you become part of the panel that way. That's the idea. The panel is round, not just half moon.
Yes? No?
Who'd like to go first?
In this case, I have a question for Andy, if I may. You said about this concept of non-formal education in the school-based system. Can you develop a little bit more on this?
Sure. again, as I said before, this is in a way kind of new work. I mean, it's not new work. Obviously, WAGs like WASM is doing non-formal education every day all over the world. But for WAGs at global level, we've really seen a need, and we've heard a need coming from girls and from the member organizations in our countries to work on certain key areas where perhaps the Girl Guide, Girl Scout method isn't being applied as a kind of effectively as it could be, or just the approach being taken to guiding isn't actually bringing out the learning in the best possible way. So what we're trying to do is identify these key themes, and one of them is in those member organizations we have which are focusing on delivering guiding in a school setting, of which we have quite a few, particularly in the Arab region and in Asia Pacific, and then also actually a few in the other regions. How can we support teachers? Because often in these countries, guiding is delivered by teachers. How can we support teachers to really take guiding out of the classroom? So it's not a case that you put on your uniform, but you are still delivering in a formal way. But really, how can you apply the Girl Guide, Girl Scout method in a really exciting way that's very attractive for the children, and where they get that learning outcome that we are looking for? So this is, I think it's very much a call coming from our members that we work in this area, so that, because I think particularly with like international events, they are, we have representatives from these countries that are doing school-based guiding, and they are seeing community-based guiding. And it's not to say that all school-based guiding is formal, because it's not. But there is a trend there, because in many cases the teachers are not receiving additional training or the support they'd need in order to really understand how to apply the Girl Guide, Girl Scout method effectively. So, I think we're trying to kind of bring it together in a different way. And where that will go, I'm not sure yet. We're working with a group of countries at the moment to understand what does that support look like. So, Sorry.
Anyone change their mind in the audience? Anyone change your mind? Oh, thank you, Mary. Please.
So, hello everyone. I think I hope I'm not too tall for the camera. So if you see only my shoulders, you can know that I have also a head. Believe me. Yeah. We play security. So hello everyone. My name is Mehdi Ben Khalil. I'm from Tunisia. It's in North Africa, of course, but we are also part of the Arab region. I will just share an experience about this and maybe open highlight something and ask a question to our guest from the UN, Ruben. So in Tunisia, the scouting is not school-based, but what we are doing in partnership with the Ministry of Education is that we are using the schools as facilities to do our normal scouting. So it's not a school-based scouting, but just using the schools because there is not enough places to use. So what we saw through the 15-20 last years is that many of the teachers start to be interested by scouting, seeing that there is an added value on the pupils that are scouts also, and from that time we had more and more teachers willing to become scout leaders and follow our normal unit leader trainings. And on 2012, so last year, we had renewed our partnership with the Ministry of Education, and actually we are part of their discussion in reviewing the formal educational program, and we are part as fully part in the discussions of the ministry, so they are willing to have some input from our side. The second thing is that we are starting kind of extra school activities or clubs. So we are running a kind of citizenship clubs, so how to live in a group, we are, etc., etc. So the idea is maybe if the UN offices, for example, FAO, can highlight this to the country offices, that they can work much more efficiently with the government if they go through civil society and especially the Scouts, because we are already there. We have credit, we are respected, and we really reach out to the countries and to the schools and to the pupils. So this kind of school clubs, for example, using maybe these activity badges that you have, can be a very efficient way to reach to much more people and also to have easier good results. So maybe if the UN, there is an effort to be done by the UN country offices to both contact the Scout Association, but also create the network between the Scout Association and the government within their discussion. So, thank you.
So, actually, that's exactly what we've been doing underneath the Younger program. It does depend quite a lot on our country office. So, it's like, unfortunately, it always comes down to individuals. So, where we've had like really good enthusiasm from like the country offices, we actually created those sort of partnerships. So, for example, like Costa Rica, we've actually brought together the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Education with our country office and the offices of other UN agencies. And I explicitly told them that for the project, to receive funding from me to do the project, they have to connect with the Scouts and the Girl Guides and the other big youth organizations. And like originally they were like a bit perplexed because they've never done it, but now they're so happy to be working with like those youth organizations, because it's like really like they built like the national curriculum and activities all together. They got the buy-in of all the big players in the country, and now together they're actually doing the outreach and the implementation. And like there's the whole team is really happy at the country level. So it's definitely something we'd like to replicate in other countries as well.
Thank you for the question and thank you for the answer. Do we have anybody else? Yes, please. Come on stage. Please, Raimundo.
Thank you very much. My name is Raimundo Tamayo. I'm from Mexico. And, I was thinking about connecting some dots that we have listened about since the Congress, the World Education Congress began. Christine Lo, which is the Undersecretary for the Environment in Hong Kong, was sharing with us some of the personal experiences, but then at the end she closed up a very interesting keynote speech on reflecting about the amount of food that was wasted in all the cities around the world and the impact that had on the environment. Now we have an opportunity to have you here from FAO, and I was connecting some other dots, like for example, in Mexico right now, which is the country I'm from, the federal government has identified hunger and food security as one of the national priorities of the country. Whereas there's multiple topics around technology, employment, multiple areas where we could focus, and we identified that still there's a huge challenge in food security. So connecting food security, connecting the environment, and connecting scouting right now within this context. We could reflect a lot on how Scouts can play a role, but I would like to listen a little bit more about how these correlation or interdependence between food security, which also tackles one of the main challenges young people face today, which is obesity, and eating habits, with the environment, and it gets to a point where it all comes together. And it all comes together in the education of young people, in non-formal education. So what's your perspective on that? What's thinking to the future on the next decade perhaps, or what's going to happen? What do you see on these potential that these organizations in these particular topics can play to contribute and make a constructive contribution? Thank you.
Okay, that's quite a big question. I'll try and split it up a bit. Like, okay, so food losses and waste. So, like the waste is really happening in developed countries. The losses are happening in developing. So like the losses is really down to like lack of infrastructure, like, you know, value chain support and so forth. So there's a lot of work being done from FAO and other agencies in supporting countries to develop that value chain structure, let's say. On the other side, the waste is really like a consumer habits, and I think that's where like you can have like quite a big impact. And I'll come back to that. Now, for FAO, we've actually developed what we call climate smart agriculture. I don't know if you've heard of it. So climate smart agriculture, we developed it in 2010 for a food security conference in The Hague. And mainly it's got these three main pillars. So it's actually increasing food intensity. So producing the amount of food that you produce in an area of land, you actually produce more, but with less external inputs. So you actually work in a much more environmentally friendly way. So you're not damaging the ecosystems around you, but you're doing actually the opposite. You're actually building those ecosystems so that you actually get an ecosystem services which then support the agricultural production. So then you're actually producing more in that area of land, and then you don't have to encroach into other areas of land, which is what's happening now because land's been degraded and so forth. The third pillar is what we call building resilience to shocks. So that could be various shocks, but fundamentally climate change shocks. So like building systems that can withstand changes in temperature, changes in water patterns, but also like extreme events. And then the third pillar is actually building, let's say, reducing the impact of agriculture on the environment, especially on emissions. So like at the moment, agriculture probably contributes over 30% of all emissions because it's like just as a sector, it's 14%, but then if you account for agriculture causing deforestation, there's another like 16% there. So it's like developing an integrated approach which allows you to then reduce the impact. Now, at the level of scouting, we actually have a new challenge badge coming out on nutrition, and it actually has various sections. One is like how to eat in a healthy way, like linked to like physical recreation. So it deals with like undernourishment and like obesity. But fundamentally, it actually contains a section on sustainable diets. So that this challenge badge will like walk through all the different steps from buying, like preparing, consuming, and recycling all the materials that are associated with food in a sustainable way. So the young person will get a grid of all the parameters they need to think about when buying the food. And like, you know, like also like when they're cooking it, for example, if you're cooking something in the oven, cook the whole meal in the oven, you know, like little very simple things that they can grasp. So that's how we want to, because fundamentally, like you have to change the consumer. Actually, last week when I was in the negotiations, I had a double-edged sword role, like in the sense that I had to be the chaperone of my deputy director general. So it was a complete nightmare because I was completely overworked doing all her schedule. But the nice thing is, like, I actually got to meet all the ministers of environment, like over a week. And the Ministry of Environment of Ireland was actually saying, like, consumers are changing the way we produce things because, like, the farmers can no longer sell if it's not environmentally friendly because that's what the consumers demand. So now, for the first time, it's not government that's changing legislation. It's actually the consumer influencing how things are produced. And I think that's the key. Like, the mass can really change like how things are produced, eaten, and so forth. And I think that's like something that like Scouts can make a really big impact.
Thanks a lot. Before we take more questions, just a second, I just want to mention that we have online participation from friends from Serbia, Italy, and Mexico. And what was mentioned is that our associations should have more power to influence school curriculum, and that we certainly are not school curriculum, yes, and but we are not given the right value to non-formal education. And we can take more questions now, please. It was was the first question from where? Approaches?
Can I, as she's coming in, make a response to the question that we got as well? No, please, you can stay with us for a minute. Just quickly for the point that you mentioned about non-formal education actors wanting to influence school curriculum and advocacy. I think in some countries we've made inroads with that. And I have a fantastic example in Kenya. In Kenya, we have had an opportunity where the government includes 2 people from the Scouts and Guides into their national decision-making body for the education curriculum development. And that way, clearly understanding, maybe 2 mics too close. Oh? No. Okay, so just that was one quick answer that I wanted to give. Regarding the point about that we do not, from Massimo De Luca in Italy, regarding we do not have the right value for non-formal education, we haven't got it. I think it's a very fair statement what he has said, and I think we are trying to build on a discussion now, and hopefully in the next few minutes we will be able to look at what needs to be done to go towards getting non-formal education recognized better.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Shirley. I'm from Hong Kong, and I'm a Rover Scout. Actually, the situation in Hong Kong in the Rover Scout is like when I'm joining the Scout, and my friends are saying like, "Oh, you're a Scout. You're still a Scout. You're too old to be a Scout." So I'm thinking, so that's the reason why the Rover Scout in Hong Kong is not of a high rate. So I'm thinking, actually in Hong Kong, the Rover Scout is the age 18 to 26, and they are the training are for us to have the service project, and also train us to be a future leaders for Scout. So I'm thinking, the first question is that I'm thinking, how should we promote Rovers in Hong Kong? And the second question is that, should we change the Scout trainings to meet the teenage needs or wants? Like, for example, the teenage hates outdoors, they don't want to go hiking. So should we cancel these trainings and provide more like indoors activities, trainings, and like board games or other trainings for leadership or teamwork? Thanks.
So my answer is no, you shouldn't change it, but you should actually try and, for me, you need to maybe show case studies of what it means to be a Rover Scout. Actually, I was a Rover Scout as well, and this role of serving and being a lead and so forth has taught me so much that I've used in my job now. I mean, I don't know if you know that Ban Ki-moon was a Scout. So he also said that he'd learned so much from Scouting, and maybe we can do a bit more on the selling point. But as I said in my previous session, bringing young people out into the environment is actually the best way of creating environmental conscious people. It's actually been done in scientific research and so forth. So if you take away that component, it's you're taking out the most valuable component maybe. And also the other thing is quite often the ones of your age, they go, "Oh yeah, that's really crap," that. But when you actually take them out, they really enjoy it. It's just because they've never done it. So you need to drag them out and make them do it. Yeah, it's a really hard age group. It's not only Hong Kong, it's also other Scout associations in other countries where you get quite a big drop off, after Cubs, you really see. So that it's actually normally you get people staying in Rovers because they've come from the lower ranks. It's actually really hard bringing new people in at that age.
Wow!
But you can do little weekends sometimes or one day things which you can even hide it. You don't show it that is like a Scout activity, and before you know, you've dragged them in.
Just before Hani steps in, 2 things to qualify here. One is, Ruben, the way you speak about Scouting, I feel that It's very difficult to understand. Maybe you should be the internal scout representative on this as well, to double up with Hani. Fantastic understanding of. Wow. Okay, people didn't hear that, so I'm going to repeat. 16 years of scouting. That's what made Ruben Sessa Dr. Ruben Sessa. Oh, sorry. How old are you? You know, so I thought it's my, lack of sleep that, that. 32 years of scouting, ladies and gentlemen. Shall we give a big round of applause? Yeah, I think that's something fantastic that we have such value from people who have been scouts, who have gone into systems like UN. And at this time, I want to recognize Shirley, who came and asked us the question. She is a youth advisor for the Asia Pacific region, and it's an opportunity that we give for youth empowerment and involvement. And I was a youth advisor like you, Shirley, one day before I got slowly hijacked into the process. So.
Maybe one more thing that in my current job I do a lot of recruitment for the division and the department, and I can tell you, if on your CV you've got that you're a scout, you score much higher for me, and you get no, seriously, because you show that you're a team player, you can use your initiative, you use you can problem solve. So for me that's something that always if you've got that on your CV, you definitely get at least to the next round, the first selection process. So
I'm going to tweet and Facebook that a lot this evening. I mean, employment opportunities. I mean, if people who are recruiting are looking at if you're a scout, we should say the search engine optimization, CV optimization. Please make sure that you're a scout and you can put it in your CV, because you never know. Your new boss might have been a scout and would love it. Or a guide.
We're looking for the best, and often the best are the ones that have been through scouting.
Thank you. That's a quote I'm going to take for Facebook as well.
Do you think they have something to add after this? Yeah. I just have two examples. Maybe Raimondo can add on this. But rovers all over the world, there is a lot of things changing because of what the people is actually would like to do things. Ask the Boy is always the fundamental thing about what BP was saying about youth program. And the rovers, if they would like to do something, they will do it, even if the program is saying something else. So, like in Mexico, I know that you have a lot of projects now regarding the development and sustainable development and environment and peace and so on, which is really catching with the rovers, and they have a very good rover section. And also in France, they are now trying to go outside. So they are finishing in France, and they are doing a lot of things outside in Africa and maybe Latin America and so on, but because they would like to do things, and the rovers is willing to do this. So don't stop in very box-minded program. There is a lot of things to do, and ask what the young people would like to do actually. If they are looking to the scouting as it is old-fashioned, we have to know why they are looking to this as an old-fashioned and to upgrade it. That's it. Thank you.
Suggestion to, but I think perhaps you'd like me to say, or you want to? It's on. Thank you. Do you have a way to know whether it's on? No. It helps when you're not deaf, Sleep deprivation can do a lot to you. I promise you. Okay. Now, I think the best thing for us to do is we have about 15 minutes, and also for the benefit of the online engagement, we continue the discussions in plenary. So there are a couple of important questions that we had for plenary, but we'll take your questions first. And then we will put that question out to everybody here. Whoever wants to answer will have to come on the green cross. And if you are Mehdi, you'll have to sit down.
I'm Bonifacio from the Philippines. I don't know if there is some form of a formal partnership that exists between the UN and the scout movement, the scouting movement. If there, I don't know.
Okay, I can take that answer. There are formal agreements with the United Nations. We have currently an agreement regarding the Millennium Development Goals that we signed with the United Nations. That's up to the 2015. That's under that framework that we developed the Scouts of the World program. Hani mentioned about that earlier. These are global partnerships that we sign with the UN, and it has elements that are applicable for country UN offices and the national scout organizations to work together. Then last year, we signed an agreement with the ILO, International Labour Organization, to work on eliminating child labor and to education of children's rights. In the past, we have had relationships with UNICEF, with an MOU around the centenary of scouting, and there is interest to continue working, particularly on child protection.
So in the local level, for example, in my town, and we see the UNESCO is doing something, can we just simply approach them and tell them that we can volunteer or something? In what capacity can we of assistance?
Yeah, like if you actually know if you actually got contacts with the actual person there, that's probably the easiest route. If you don't feel comfortable with doing that, we can actually assist you through, let's say, our country offices. Like, I'm FAO, so it will take me a bit more time to get to the UNESCO country office, but I can help you, like, finding it because I have my contacts in UNESCO, and they could probably give me the contacts for your country. So, of course, the UN system is very complicated because there's like so many different agencies, and they're all doing work on the ground. But for sure, if you want to work with a specific one, we can help you in contacting that office for that country.
I mean, to continue on that, Boniface, I don't know if Diana would explain better than me, so you're welcome to complete what I would say. The way it works in our system, how World Scouting tries to help national scout organizations develop partnerships is, first of all, we encourage that there should be partnerships at each level. And with the reality and the values that scouting stands for in your own country, you will know which is the right partner to engage with and for what need. And there is a second, maybe I change. So there is also the second bit about the partnership, which is looking at the globality of what scouting is working on in several countries and to fit into those kind of frameworks, such as the Post-2015 agenda, sustainable development goals, or the current Millennium Development Goals. There is still nearly 1,000 days left for it, so we have some things that we can do in the next 2.5 years for the Millennium Development Goals. What we should do is, at the global level, we try to set partnerships that are setting umbrella level agreements, helping national scout organizations and member organizations in the case of WAGs to have references that you can use to link up with the national offices. So let's say for a example, I would take the head of UNICEF has signed and the head of scouting has signed on an agreement and recommended their members to engage in partnerships. Somebody working in a national scout organizations can use that as a reference and take it to the UN country office. So this is the kind of work that we try to do with not just UN, but all other partners in developing memorandum of understandings, not verifying details, but giving frameworks, talking about areas where you can collaborate, and saying what kind of support is available. Is there finance available? Is there educational material available? I mean, Ruben himself has helped scouting in Africa with a huge amount of money, providing money for projects called Food for Life. And his FAO is working on a lot of work around that. So he brought expertise and money to us and said, come on, let's take it to more people. Fantastic project, people being able to grow their own food and getting people back to agriculture so that they don't have that issue. And he helped us upscale the project's quality and also widen the number of reach that we had. So partners come with various things, and we had an agreement on that when he said, okay, the money is ready, now let's prepare an agreement, sign, and let's do it. And he went and trained, he sent a team of trainers who went and trained our national coordinators who went and implemented projects in those countries. So that's an example, concrete example as well.
No? Raimundo?
Thank you. I just want to make two quick comments. Well, comment and a question. Regarding the partnerships, in Mexico, the experience we faced as the new team arrived was this execution gap between the global kind of guidelines that are available, specifically two documents. One of it being the Marrakesh Charter, and the second one being Scouting and the United Nations. Two publications that give us just general guidance on these dynamics that Srinath was sharing. But we arrived that we didn't have the tools necessary to bring it down to the national level, to the operational level as well, to have an impact, a real impact on the groups and on the program. So we developed some guidelines on external relations on three main topics, which is the Memorandum of Understanding, but with examples, just kind of a fill in the gap type of doc template. The second one was for implementation, because local governments wanted to make partnerships with Scouts so that they could help them out, for example, with a community service project or perhaps with an environmental initiative. And they were projects that many times involved either very little or no funding. But still, for example, we didn't have any instrument that if the government failed to comply with their commitments, that we could defend ourselves, so that we could say, hey, you know, we have formal agreement. And in that way, recognizing the institutionality or the organization as a formal institution, and not just someone that they could approach and say, hey, you know, could you be there? And if it doesn't work out, then no worries. But kind of formalizing a little bit this relationship. And the third instrument, these normally went from $0 to $20,000 on investment. Whether it is they committed, for example, to provide materials to the young persons to conduct an educational activity. And the other one is a cooperation agreement that goes from $20,000 up, and it is a more legal framework that protects the National Scout Organization as well, and that many UN agencies work within those frameworks so that they can themselves as well share these terms of reference of what is going to be done in the field or by the National Scout Organization. So these guidelines, which unfortunately are now only available in Spanish, but kind of gave these tools so that the general frameworks that the World Bureau strives to develop, and it's continuously, you know, engaging in these discussions, can be brought down to have an impact on the young people. So that's the part of these cooperation and how we're bringing it down to the field, no? And in the second, my question goes on the field of education. I mean, the topic of the discussion, and how these change in focus or refocus after the Millennium Development Goals, post-2015 agenda. Scouting is claiming lots of things, assuming lots of things, that we have an impact on sustainable development, that we have an impact on behaviors of young people, that we have an impact on perhaps habits that are related to health, to nutrition, to education. Nonetheless, we're still not measuring much. So what challenges lie ahead on the expectations of the United Nations, of other international cooperation institutions, on the capacity of the Scout movement to really be in the game of measuring impact? Now, I'm going to draw upon the 5 programming principles, for example, of the United Nations: results-based management, environmental sustainability, gender, for example, also using the, hold on, it's results-based management, environmental sustainability, gender, using as well the, I mean, just help me out here. Well, and using different,
It's on. Thank you.
using different frameworks and how we are really responding to these expectations, perhaps, no? And is this education, for example, when we're talking about sustainable development or environment, when we're talking about gender, perhaps, or human rights, I'm sorry, human rights-based approach, it's another of the development programming principles. So are we really documenting it? Are there written documents that give guidelines to National Scout organizations to be in the game on these topics? Or are we just continuing doing scouting as ever before and just continue assuming that we have an impact on human rights, on environment, on gender, and on a whole set of topics that are nowadays more relevant than ever? Thank you.
I think what Raimundo has done here has really set up our last wrap-up comments for the last few minutes. I mean, I want to request if Diana can join the panel.
Actually, Raimundo just anticipated my last question, so that's fine.
No, but why don't you join the panel and we try to wrap up with Raimundo's questions, answers, as Diana was already planning to ask this question.
Mine would have been shorter. It would just have been like what UN is planning to do in order to recognize WSM's efforts.
But he has given a good perspective of what we need to address in terms of challenges to help contribute and be recognized for that contribution. What are the minimum standards? And he's asking, how do we measure that? If we agree on those standards and if we start measuring them, everybody will be able to have a way that they build up the achievement of sustainable development goals, and there will be joined up action. So I want to hear your final thoughts. We can go from one to the other, addressing these three key questions. What do you think about such standards that we need to do? How do we measure them? And how do we build an agreement towards that?
I mean, I think impact assessment is a really hard thing to do in scouting and guiding. I think we all believe, and I think we're right to believe that we have a huge impact, but actually, you know, real impact assessment at grassroots level is, I think, a real challenge. And I suppose in this particular area, I would add to the question, how can scouting and guiding and potentially other related youth-focused organizations really build a kind of shared impact assessment? Is there a way of consolidating the evidence? And would that have more impact on how the United Nations regards non-formal education? Rather than us all working individually to assess our individual impact, is there a way of bringing that picture together?
Thanks, Andy.
I like how it accumulate questions as it comes around to me. It's like, but it's a very good question, because of course, like, now we're giving you money as well. It's like you have to be accountable for like the money we're giving you. So for example, the example that you raised, that there is actually a form of assessment inside the actual project. So actually, we have household surveys in the areas where we're doing the training, and in other villages where there is no training being undertaken. So there's going to be assessment before and after, straight after, and then like I think a year after. So then that hopefully will give a concrete impact of how the FAO funds have been used to actually achieve that food security increase in those. And under the SDGs, this is like the trick. I mean, you can imagine they haven't even managed to agree what the SDGs can be. And then there's a whole big discussion on how you measure the, results on that. And in the end, it's you have to work case by case, and then show exactly what the contribution that you've made in specific areas. it would be good that you could do like, as you said, like bring everybody together for assessment. The real problem with assessments is they're so expensive. Like, you know, it really like, sometimes like when we're running projects, you can get completely drained with the assessment part. But it is important. So as I was saying, like when we're doing like this behavioral change analysis of like journal articles, there's hardly anything there. Like there's so little research actually done on like how to create like real change. So it's definitely like work that needs to be done. But you know, you could actually get like funding for it as well. Like donors are very keen to see like there's a strong component on that assessment and stuff like that. So you can put those into project documents quite, you know, you can put budgets in project documents now, and actually you earn points by doing that. So don't feel, you know, like it's wasted money.
Thanks, Ruben. I'll come back later to respond to one of the questions you asked about us.
I will not add a question. I'll just comment on that. Actually, measuring the impact of scouting become a very big question that we tried hard to answer. But putting in mind that King of Sweden and Ban Ki-moon and Neil Armstrong, they were scouts, and they are very proud that they are scouts, and they are always saying that the scouting was part of their progression as persons. We cannot say this is the only indicator of our impact, but also we can say that this show that we are really doing a lot of things, but actually also the numbers that we have, the education that we have, the impression that maybe the people have about us in so many countries can be an indication for measurement. I want to add on this why we are not recognized with what we are doing in scouting and guiding. I'm really jealous that Red Cross and Red Crescent, they have a bigger status or a higher status in the UN because they are dealing with conflicts and disasters, where we are dealing with in the peaceful time, and we are doing education to have these people maybe responding in the conflict and disasters, we are not recognized with. Prevent the disaster from happening. Yeah, so this is really something hurt me. Because they are doing things like the Security Council also, they are the highest voting things, they can prevent things in the UN, because they are also dealing with this conflict and disaster. So it is really contradicting things when we are talking about humanitarian and humanity in general. That's my...
Doina, would you like to say something?
Yes, but not in my position as a facilitator, but as a youth advisor, if I may. I just would like to speak up on behalf of young people of this movement, saying that the fact that we have education first on the sustainable development goals, it's like it took over poverty, right? It's amazing, and I think it's a very good timing to put the scouting movement in the spotlight. And well, we can start today, not wait until 2015, of course. What I'm suggesting is for all those young people who are actually developing programs at home in education, in non-formal education, but also in schools, why not, to actually try and work with the UN agencies, as Robert was suggesting, and I think this would be a really good initiative. That's it.
Thank you very much, Doina. Yeah, I've got a mic paranoia today. It's just naturally, before I speak, I don't hear myself. No, it's fine. It's fine. No, it becomes a... I think I want to wrap the final statement by saying that scouting and guiding particularly have a fantastic way of measuring our impact. I mean, we do self-assessment. We don't need to set up parallel ways of measuring it. And progressive learning is a way that we have been able to evaluate young people's development, which is part of both our organizations, as it was the founding principle of both guiding and scouting, as prescribed by Baden-Powell. I mean, can we think in those lines, maybe of a badge, like Scouts of the World, being associated and being recognized within the UN system, that this is a formal way of us saying Guides of the World or Scouts of the World is jointly branded, saying the UN Scouts of the World, the UN Guides of the World, or Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. You need to find the politically correct way of saying that. But yeah, if we can think of something like that where it is recognized and moves young people into action and showcases their capacity. I mean, we have a proper way that you have to do the discovery phase, and then you have to do, I mean, the Scouts of the World is as structured as it could get, and giving people framework to showcase how they actually change communities for good. And I think I have to tell everybody here that I've had great interest from United Nations Development Group and United Nations Development Program, offices in Geneva and New York, wanting to explore how this can be very well discussed in advance of 2015. And Ban Ki-moon is going to be there in 2015. He finishes his term in 2016. As a scout, maybe he would want to say, let's use the UN badge as the badge for you. Just have the UN logo without any consent issue, as long as you maintain the... I mean, this is coming from United Nations. And I said, wow, why didn't we think of coming and asking them? So you never know. But we'll not take over the UN. That's a promise.
So, as you know, we have been developing a global citizenship award of the United Nations, which might fit the bill. It's of course, as normal, like when you create something which is out of the box, especially in New York, like has been a bit resistant, because they want to know, how do we control it? How do we ensure that every person that does it has met the requirements? As you like, you know, they don't get it. And so, but we've been talking very closely now to the UN Special Envoy on Youth, and he's very enthusiastic about the idea, and he has regular meetings with Ban Ki-moon. And he's actually going to propose it to him, this like Global Citizenship Award, as like and there we actually see it as like, yeah, okay, it's like United Nations Global, but we actually see it like underneath you have the key partners. So it would be the UN agencies like WASM, WAGs, like the you know, like the big six, and so it's like it's a joint badge, not only the UN but it's of the key youth organizations.
And it could just be that if you do a program that we've already set up, you automatically qualify for it, just the way we did for the Duke of Edinburgh Awards partnership for Scouts. Yeah, I think we have lots of opportunities. So we have a very important person, actually. He's the chairman of the Swedish Scout and Guide Council, the Swedish Scouting and Guiding Association, who sent a message to us saying that, now I learned more about UNESCO's definitions of formal, informal, and non-formal education, and the strength of the latter for youth. Yeah, for the youth. So, Martin, thank you for watching us from there, and we really, grateful that that you value this session as much. But I also want to take a moment to thank all the panelists here. Thank you very much for your kind presence and inputs, and sorry if we have pushed you a little bit to out of the comfort zone, but thanks for sharing this. And I want to thank all of you, our audiences online, my co-facilitator, our rapporteur, and our OCLs, the online community leaders. Thank you very much.
Can I just make one last?
Ruben has 1 point finally, sorry.
Just a bit of advertising. It's like on Jung, if you write to younger@fao.org, we'll register you to the list server, and that gives you updates not only on the challenge badges, but like also when there's like jobs being advertised from the different UN. And so, for example, we've actually put just now a vacancy out. We're looking for a French mother tongue who's also very good at English to come and work for FAO for a few months. So if you register, then you get all the updates.
And don't forget to please fill your evaluation form and be as critical as you can so that we can make it better next time. Thank you.